Okay, so you've got a former US president on one side and a global news giant on the other. We're talking about Donald Trump versus the BBC. And no, this isn't some hypothetical scenario, it's a real life legal war. So, what's really behind this massive lawsuit? Let's get into it.
All right, at the very center of this whole thing is one just jaw-dropping number, $5 billion. Seriously, that is the staggering amount of money Donald Trump is looking for in damages. It's a figure that's obviously designed to make a huge statement. And you know what? Get this, that $5 billion, that's not even the total. It's what he's demanding for each separate claim he's filed. And the craziest part? This entire case all comes down to a single segment on the BBC's big investigative show, Panorama. So what are the actual charges here? Let's unpack exactly what the legal arguments are that are being thrown down in a Florida courtroom. Okay, so Trump's legal team is coming at this from three different angles. First up, you've got defamation. That's the claim that the BBC knew it was putting out false information that would damage his reputation. Then, number two, they're alleging a violation of Florida's trade practices law, which basically suggests unfair business conduct. And finally, there's the really explosive claim, reckless election interference. The argument there is that the program was a deliberate hit job meant to hurt him politically. It sounds kind of wild, but believe it or not, this entire multi-billion-dollar lawsuit really just boils down to one single, very controversial edit. So Trump's main argument is that the BBC intentionally twisted what he said. In his own words, just a few hours before filing the suit, he said, "They put terrible words in my mouth, words I never said." So that really brings us to the key question here, right? What exactly was edited? Okay, this is the real heart of the complaint. The lawsuit says the BBC took different pieces of Trump's January 6th speech and, well, basically remixed them. They stitched them together out of order. And the argument from Trump's team is that doing this created a totally false and damaging story, making it look like he was directly telling people to be violent. Now, the BBC did respond. They actually put out an apology, and they even admitted to an editing error. But, and this is really the crucial part, they absolutely refused to pay up. And that, right there, is what set the stage for this huge legal fight. But you know, filing a lawsuit is one thing. Actually winning it, or even just getting the case heard in the first place, is another. Trump's team has some pretty big legal hurdles they have to clear first. So the main claim is defamation, the idea that the BBC's false statements hurt his reputation. Simple enough, right? Well, not so fast. Before anyone can even start arguing about the edit, Trump's lawyers have to answer a really basic question. Why on earth should a British broadcaster have to stand trial in a Florida courtroom? So these are the big questions the court has to figure out right at the start. First, does a Florida court even have the authority, the jurisdiction over a British company? Second, how many people in the US, and more importantly, in Florida, actually saw this documentary? And third, was there enough damage done to Trump's reputation, specifically in Florida, to even have a trial there in the first place? Trump's lawyers have a pretty straightforward argument for our modern digital worlds. If you stream it here, you can be sued here. That's the gist of it. They're claiming that because the BBC made the documentary available on streaming services like BritBox in Florida, they opened themselves up to US law. Now, whether or not a judge actually buys that argument, that's going to be the first major test for this entire case. But you know, when you step back, this case is about so much more than just one edited video clip. It's really a clash that gets to the heart of the relationship between the media, big money, and political power. And the fallout from all this has already been huge inside the BBC. I mean, way before this lawsuit was even a thing, the backlash over that documentary edit reportedly led to 2 senior executives resigning. That really shows you just how seriously the BBC itself took this screw-up internally. You have to remember, for a broadcaster like the BBC that's funded by the public, this is kind of a nightmare scenario. Every single pound they spend fighting a legal battle in another country is a pound that's not going into making new shows. And all of this is happening while the British public, the people who actually pay for the BBC, are watching. These kinds of lawsuits can drag on for years, cost a fortune, and become a massive PR headache. So as this whole thing moves forward, it really forces us to ask a much bigger question. Is this a real legitimate attempt to hold a powerful media company accountable when it makes a mistake? Or is it a strategic attack just using the courts to punish a news organization for coverage you don't like? The answer to that question, whatever it ends up being, is definitely going to shape how these fights between politicians and the press play out in the future.